Is it hot in here or is it me? Okay. Nice. Well, I'm hot, so I'm going to take care of myself. All right? That'll work. Okay. Right? That was awesome, Deliso. Thank you. Would you breathe with me, please? Taking a deep breath. And again. And one more time, deep breath in. And let it go. Something so wonderful that happens when we breathe together. Not only does it beat the alternative, but something very mystical that happens as we inspire, take it in together. So last week, I talked about dealing with a sense of low energy and kind of listlessness. I called it ennui. Isn't that a good word? Ennui. It's just that kind of feeling of not really wanting to do anything or really get excited about anything. And it was a really difficult talk for me because I try to practice not sharing my stuff in front of you all while they're going on. It's really important to me that I come out on the other side and then I talk about it, you know? So for me to still be in the midst of kind of this struggle that I was having and talk about it was very unusual, and it left me feeling more than a little bit vulnerable. But what blew me away was how many of you told me afterwards that you were going through something similar and how much you appreciated the fact that I talked about it. And it was mind-blowing to me because as a spiritual leader, I think I have to have it going on all the time. That in order to lead, I have to be strong and I have to have all the answers. Who knew that it turns out that we're going through this thing called life together? Yeah, right? I love what Helen Keller said. She said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So thank you all for loving me enough to be able to be vulnerable last week and talk about the struggle that I was having. So that brings me to yet another vulnerable share. Are you ready? You sure? All right. I am a bit of a nerd. It's true. One of my very guilty pleasures is watching Antiques Roadshow. Anybody else? Antiques Roadshow people? Okay. I go so far as to record it every week and plan an entire evening around watching Antiques Roadshow. And each time that I do it, I learn something. I learn something about history, I learn something about antiques, and I learn something about human nature. Yeah. In fact, I absolutely love it. My favorite part about it is when somebody has absolutely no idea that they have something of theirs that has value, and then the look on their face when they are told that a blanket that they have kept draped across a chair for years in their bedroom is a rare Navajo blanket worth $500,000. Or somebody who has inherited baseball cards. Baseball cards. Super rare. And a value of $1 million. US. To me, this is such an illustration of winning, which happens to be my talk title today. Now, of course, we usually define winning as beating somebody in a competition or claiming victory over something or someone. But for me, finding out that something that you have that you didn't know was valuable and you didn't expect anything like that is like winning the game of life. Would you agree? You betcha. Now, of course, this isn't a competition. Antiques Roadshow isn't a competition, but it is a lovely illustration of an abundant and generous universe doing what it does, sometimes unexpectedly. In fact, our founder, Ernest Holmes, said this: life is self-perpetuating. Love is the principle of life, for it is the nature of everything to give. It is the nature of everything to give, and because we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, then it means that our nature also is to give, is to be generous, is to be supportive and loving. It is our nature to celebrate wins, whether they are ours or someone else's. So, back to Antiques Roadshow. Really, let me see a show of hands. How many of you have never seen Antiques Roadshow? Really? Okay, those are the cool people. They are not the nerds. Nerds, raise your hand! Woohoo! I love to see people winning. This is why I watch the Antiques Roadshow. In fact, let me tell you what inspired this talk. They're doing something right now where they're calling it the oh shoot, I have it wrote vintage, like vintage Calgary or vintage San Diego or something like that. And what they do is that they show a segment from a number of years ago, like an entire show, and then they show what the item was worth when it was originally appraised and what it's worth now in 2019. And if it's worth less than what it was originally appraised for, they show the value, the original value, and then they show the new value, and it's accompanied by this really obnoxious bassoon sound. If it's lower, it's kind of like, but if it's worth more, then they've got this really triumphant sound, like a da-da-da. And so I find that I'm watching this with bated breath. Which way is it going to go? Which way? And you know what? They're really good at show business, you know, so they make you wait like that extra 2 seconds. You think they're about to announce it, and then or da-da-da. And what happens for me is that I find that I'm genuinely sad when the item's value is less than it had been originally appraised for, and I'm genuinely happy when it goes up. So, of course, this got me to thinking about a metaphor for life because, you know, I live my life looking for metaphor. So let me ask this question. Being nice people, and I would think that we are pretty much all nice people. Raise your hand if you're a nice person. Raise your hand if you're a nerd. Okay. Do we celebrate with others when they succeed? Or do we pretend to be happy for them, but down deep, we're really envious, and we think to ourselves, what do they have that I don't? Or why is God blessing them and not me? Now, I can honestly tell you, when I'm watching Antiques Roadshow and a perfect stranger's item is appraised high, I am authentically happy for them. I cannot say the same when someone I know or is in my sphere of awareness has a success that I would really like to have of my own. For instance, when one of my fellow single friends finds a great guy, I'm like, yay! When someone has lost weight and has wearing a smaller size, has new clothes. Someone takes a fabulous vacation, buys a nicer house, achieves something really wonderful, gets an opportunity that I wish I had gotten, or has what I consider to be the ideal life. I, honest to goodness, sometimes still have to fight with the envy monster sometimes. So what's the difference between my delight in a perfect stranger's success on Antiques Roadshow and my not so far below the surface envy for people's success if I know them? So it got me to thinking, maybe it's because if I don't know them, I'm not inclined to compare myself or my life to theirs. I'm just happy for their success. Whereas if I know the person and I see that they're having a success, I compare my life to theirs, and sometimes I come up lacking. True story. Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. In other words, comparison is one of the lowest vibration, unhealthiest activities that we can participate in. It robs us of our ability to appreciate who we are and how we're doing in life, and at the same time be genuinely happy for people. Comparison robs us of that opportunity to celebrate for ourselves or for others. Besides, as Stephen Furtick said this, the reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. Facebook. You know, sometimes I look at people's lives on Facebook and I'm like, I want that life. But you know what? It could not be true. It could also not be true. But let's face it. Somebody is always going to be better than you at something. Okay? Accept it. And you are always going to be better at something than someone else. Accept it. Because each one of us is unique. Each one of us has talents and abilities. So anytime that we joyfully express that part of ourselves, that gifted part of ourselves, that divine part of ourselves, whether it's music or preaching or rapping or painting or gardening or writing or building or solving or accounting or cooking or running or skating or planning or teaching, anytime we do that and we are fully doing it, we are winning. And when we view our life from that viewpoint, there is absolutely nothing to compare or envy. Florence Scovel Shinn, who wrote the book called The Game of Life and How to Play It, said this. Look at this picture first. See the little yellow flower in the middle of it? I love that. There is a place that you are to fill and no one else can fill. Something you are to do which no one else can do. Isn't that wonderful? So because this is true, then why the heck do we compare ourselves with other people? Why are we not celebrating who they are, the successes that they're having, and at the same time celebrating who we are? Because here's what happens, is that when we know and we celebrate who we are and who others are, what happens is we are expanding the consciousness and possibility for everybody. When we are knowing the truth for ourselves and others, we are expanding the consciousness for everybody. Susan Elizabeth Phillips said this, celebrate the success of others, high tide floats all ships. Isn't that a cool quote? Celebrate the success of others, high tide floats all ships. Really cool in theory. Celebrate everybody's successes. Be happy for your family and your friends and everybody. But what are actual tools to use when the envy monster rises up? Well, one of the tools we talked about last week, and that is gratitude. And yes, I know we talked about it last week. Can't have too much gratitude. Feeling gratitude for all the blessings that we do have. Simply sitting here in a free country on a comfortable chair, listening to fabulous music, looking forward to coffee and conversation is something to be grateful for. Because what happens is that when we feel that gratitude, we can turn our thoughts, we can turn our feelings around on a dime. Another tool is to realize that even as we are battling with our own feelings of inadequacy, so is everybody else. Even the most successful people in the world who seem to have the best lives ever are dealing with feelings of envy and not enough and comparison. I dare say it's our human nature, but it is not our spiritual nature. Therefore, we do our work, and you know what I mean by our work, right? I'm talking about expressing gratitude and doing affirmations and meditating and looking for the good and coming to workshops and taking classes and all that other stuff. We do our work for the purpose of raising our consciousness more often. Yes, we go down again, but then we bring it back up again more often to our spiritual nature, which is our true nature. Spiritual beings having a human experience. That's the truth. Besides, even those people who seem to have it all are going through things that we can't even imagine. What's that saying that says something along the lines, help me out here, if everybody pooled their problems into a pile and you were told to choose somebody else's, you would always choose your own? Yeah. I've told you the story, I've told this before, I know, about a girl that I went to high school with. As we became adults, I liked her, we were friends, right? And she had everything. She had a handsome husband, she had a great kid, she had a lovely home, she had a loving family, she had lots of friends. She lived in the town that we all grew up in, which is right on the beach. She was tall and thin and pretty. And blonde. In other words, she was everything I wasn't and thought I wanted to be. And she had an inoperable, agonizing brain tumor. And she made her transition last year, before her 60th birthday. So think about all that wasted energy I used all those years comparing my life to hers. Instead of being happy for my friend and her wonderful life while still loving the life that I was creating. The final tool, or another tool, shall we say, is to realize that those feelings of inadequacy and comparison and envy come from a belief in lack, that there isn't enough good to go around, that somehow if someone has a lot, then that means less for us. When nothing could be further from the truth. We live in an ever-expanding universe of abundance. There is no lack, except in our own belief. Our belief that there isn't enough to go around. If you've ever known me for any length of time, you know, or if you've taken classes with me, I turn to nature often, but I turn to nature to illustrate what I mean by no lack. And here's just a partial list of some of the things that appear to be limitlessly abundant. Pine needles. Leaves on the ground in the fall. Tomatoes at harvest. Or zucchini. Anybody been a victim of a drive-by zucchiniing? Stars in the sky. Sand on the beach. Ants. And cat hair. These are tangible, real-life examples of the limitless and abundance that we live in, that we are surrounded by. So if it's true in nature, then it is true in our lives as well. We just don't believe it's true, therefore we don't see it. So that's our work. To train ourselves to see the good that is all around us and to accept it. Here's how Ernest Holmes put it. We must set up a receiving center. No matter how abundantly the horn of plenty may pour out its universal gifts, we must hold up our bowl of acceptance or the gift cannot be complete. Life is ready to give us all that we desire, but we must first cast from us everything that hinders its complete expression through us. Let go of all struggle and strife and accept the divine bounty. I think the last time I used this quote, I made y'all go like this. So I want you to go like this. Come on, do it. Woo! You should see what I'm seeing here. We are accepting our divine bounty. So part of the accepting this is to celebrate it when we see it, even if it's in somebody else's world of effect, in somebody else's life. In other words, observe the good and celebrate it wherever it is, because that increases our bowl of acceptance. Robert Ingersoll wrote, "We rise by lifting others. We rise, they rise. The entire consciousness of humanity rises when we encourage and celebrate other people. And everybody ends up winning." I love you. I'm a winner. Are you a winner? Yes, yes, sir. And so it is. So it is. So, what I didn't tell you about my friend Deliso, he's like, what is she going to say now?